I've made a bunch of army guides for Warhammer The Old World to help you guys get going and understanding what each army does. And at the end of them, I keep referencing these old world builder lists that I've made. And it occurred to me that a bunch of beginners are unlikely to have heard of or have even used Old World Builder before. So in this video, let's answer the questions: what is Old World Builder and how do you use it? Well, Old World Builder is a free web app that you can use to create and develop army lists for Warhammer The Old World. Personally, I think it's up there as a best-in-class application for list building across any of the tabletop game systems that I play. It works on both desktop and mobile. One of the things that makes it so great is that it's incredibly self-explanatory, but there are a few little extra tricks you can do with it that aren't as clear. So let's get a run through of how to use it for building lists, as well as these neat extra tricks and how to use it in-game.
Let's start with an army and composition. To get started, go to old-world-builder.com. Old World Builder is a responsive web app, so it'll act the same on desktop as it does on mobile. You'll see 4 columns on desktop and just 1 on mobile. On the leftmost, you'll be presented with the green New List button and the Import List option, which we'll return to a bit later on. On the right, you'll have the context menu, and we'll show you a bit more about that later. But let's start by showing you how simple it is to make a new list. I'll hit the green button, which will take us through to the new list configuration option, where we choose which army we want to play. First, you'll select your faction. I'm going to select my favorite, the Wood Elves. Then you'll select your army composition. This is the army list you'll be building from, either the Grand Army from the Ravening Horde or Forces of Fantasy book in the Wood Elf case, one of the Armies of Infamy from the Arcane Journals, or if you're playing a Legacy faction, the Legacy lists, as well as the Renegade Errata list done by Val from the Square-based channel. Next, you have your army composition rules. If you're playing a game using the matched play guide, you may need to build using these restrictions, but for now we'll just stick with the open war composition. Finally, from the core things you need to select, choose your points. You can either use the preset options at the bottom, type something in, or the super laborious way of using the up and down ticker to select a point. Before you hit the create list button, you do have the option to name the list, as well as give it a description. I would definitely get into the habit of naming your lists. This web app can become extremely addictive. I normally keep my partner up at night noodling about on this. So if you wake up in the morning with 4 of the same armies lists, it can get a little bit confusing remembering which one is which. You can edit the name later. Otherwise, it just defaults to the name of the army composition. So let's hit in a name. I'm going to be writing mine as the Iona Border Defense Force of Lorelorn Forest in the north of the Old World for an upcoming tournament. With a name and description in, let's hit Create List and move swiftly on to Step 2, adding units to your army. We can immediately see that the army composition options are gone, and now we can see all of the different unit option selections available. We can see the army builder list on the left has also changed. There is now a folder option that is incredibly useful, as well as some sort options you can access in the top right of the army lists. Finally, if anything is ever wrong in the list, you get a red exclamation icon at the top of the options. But let's see the bit that keeps you going until 3 in the morning. Let's build some units. I'll build out my Dragon Lord on here. She's a Glade Lord, so we'll need to select Add under the Character Options, then select Glade Lord from the options available. When the unit is selected, we can then begin configuring. At the top, you can see the name of the character, and to the right, a context menu, where you can select to rename, delete, or duplicate the unit. Duplicating is incredibly useful when building core units that you may take multiples of. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. If it's a selection of circles, choose one. And if you have squares, you can select multiple options. Points are normally listed on the right-hand side, or it will tell you if it's a free option. And you'll see your running total add up. Let me build out my unit list here, and I'll stop when I get to anything unique or interesting. Okay, my sneaky Waystalker here. I want her to be able to cause units to panic, so I've given her a wailing arrow. And as I can take multiples of these single use items, when selected, I get a drop down to add multiple options. As you can see as well, as I can only take 50 points of magic items with her, when I select 2, the rest of the options grey out, so I won't be able to take any more. Okay, that's the list built. I've got a little bit under 2,000 points, so what can we do with it now? Well, if we're ready to game, let's move to step 3 and how to use it in game. We can hit the game view at the bottom of the list, where we're shown basically an army list with all the stats and special rules for each unit, with everything being clickable if you need to view the rule. This draws rules from the Old World wiki library straight inside the app, so everything is referenceable. The drop-down menu on the right gives you a bunch of stuff to configure. You can show generated spells to keep track of which spells you're using. The show page number shows you what page each special rule is referencing if you've got any hardback books, alongside which book it's referencing. But I would say the real killer feature of the app is the show victory points option. When you get to the end of the game, you can quickly walk through each of your units with your opponent and rapidly calculate how many victory points your opponent scored, so you can compare with who's killed what. There's also a handy banner point calculator too, because people normally forget that standards are worth kill points. Just a word of note though, if you do leave this page to go back and configure something, you will lose any of the configurations you've made, which is a bit annoying, but I believe you'd need a sign-in feature, which is probably a bit beyond the current capacity of the developer of this web app.
Okay, so that's the main chunk of how to create and use lists in-game. As I mentioned earlier, it works across both desktop and mobile. However, if you want to get the data from desktop to mobile, there's no sign-in option. The lists are saved in your local cache. So in order to share the lists to mobile or back to desktop, if you built it on a mobile, you'll need to share them across. You can use the context menu from the list to export the list, where you'll come up with the export configuration menu. Most of these configuration options from this menu are for when you want to share a text version of the list, but we want to share just the .owb JSON file that you can simply click on to download and then share across to your mobile. Maybe using a cloud drive that you can access on both devices, or maybe you can use your personal chat with your significant other to easily access and download from WhatsApp or your messenger of choosing. I'm sure they won't mind at all being sent a massive string of data that doesn't at all look like a virus. You can of course also use the copy as text option to paste and share lists to your friends, or add the special rules and stats so you can copy it to a printable document if you want to make a handy physical reference sheet rather than carry 3 kilos of books to your games. Do be warned though, if you do go through that route, you will need to manually copy in the special rules to the sheet, as it only tells you what special rules the units have, not the detail of the rules. I've made a few of my own cheat sheets using the Old World Builder as a starting point, and I've shared a link to my reference sheet for this army that I've made, so you can use it as your own template for your own forces if this is something that will be useful to you. So that's Old World Builder. It's a super handy, community-made and managed tool. I would highly recommend using it going forward, and I would definitely recommend buying the developer Nico a coffee. You can do that on PayPal from the About option in the context menu at the top of the Old World Builder page.
A big thank you as always to my patrons and YouTube members. You can join them and help support the channel for just £1 a month over on Patreon. If you're in the UK and want to grab a copy of the Bretonnian Core box, check out my Wayland Games link below, where you'll get 20% off and free shipping on orders over £20. Gives me a little kickback for sending you over there too. I've got plenty more army guides you can watch too on all the different core factions. One should be suggested to you right about now. Thank you very much.